Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Glacia, Intuitive Life Coach and Ascension Guide. I'm happy that you're here, and I'd like to talk today about timelines. So I mentioned several months back that I would be making a video on timelines, and I'm finally getting around to it now, so thank you for your patience with me. So, timelines are the different trajectories that each of us has, right? You've heard of the Mandela effect. So each of us has our own specific timeline within a set of collective timelines. So when we talk about timeline jumps or creating within your timeline or time loops, all of those have to do with your specific path in life, which is your timeline, right? Now, we talk about timeline healing, timeline collapsing, and things like that, and it's all very relevant to what we're going through right now, where the whole world is really shifting very rapidly, and being in a culmination lifetime, we're breaking down the trauma and healing past lives, generational trauma, and then we're also healing the trauma from this lifetime too, right? So we've got those major three things that we're dealing with. When we talk about timeline jumping, that's the main thing that I want to talk about right now. So timeline jumping is a very intense shift or pivotal moment in your life. I say moment, but it's actually a series of moments. So when we're dealing with the moment, actually, we're dealing with past, present, and future, all in this eternal moment that we call now. So wherever you're at in your life, it's always right now. You're never in the future unless you're in your imagination, and you're also never in the past unless you're also in imagination. Now, the imagination is a very powerful thing, so I don't mean to discredit it in any way. It's just that you exist right now in this moment, and it's a culmination of what you did in your past to bring you to this point, and what you do right now brings you into your future, right? So that's why people say the power is within the moment. Now let's get back to timelines. I mostly want to talk right now about the different timelines that we are dealing with. So humanity, you can see the world is pretty crazy right now. A lot of people are startled by how fast AI, or artificial intelligence, is moving and integrating itself into every aspect of our lives, right? So years ago I said the lower timelines are going to be taken over by AI. Those are the descending timelines, or the timelines that lead into another reality that isn't full ascension. Now, partial ascension is what a lot of people are going to do. Full ascension is what some people are going to do. And then descending is what some people are already doing. And you can see that in the collective right now, where there is this disintegration or degradation of well-being. Okay, that's a descension process. Now, many people are stuck in time loops, repeating the same patterns over and over and over. That means you're on a timeline that keeps you in the same energy. So this is where we're paying attention to past events, thinking about them, hyper-focused on them, and therefore we're re-imprinting them into our timeline. Now, there's nothing wrong or right about this. It's just, do you like it? Is it working out for you? Are you enjoying it? Does it make you happy? If it doesn't, that's where we're talking about timeline jumping and making the necessary changes to be able to jump timelines. So there's an infinite amount of timelines that you can choose from, and in fact, you create them with your imagination. You create within them, I should say. So when we're looking at time loops, these are the negative patterns that people get stuck in. When you find yourself stuck in a time loop or repeating patterns that are negative, there's something for you to learn in them. There's a lesson or somebody to forgive or a completion to be had of some sort. So this is where I say, if you don't get the lesson now and you run away from it in avoidance, don't worry, it'll loop back around for you, because your ascension process is dependent on your ability to heal the wounding that has happened throughout all of your lifetimes. We're in a culmination lifetime, meaning we're wrapping up all loose ends from all of our past timelines, so we can make a collective timeline jump. Okay? So, when you're in that negative pattern and you externalize the reasons of why it's happening, you will keep repeating it, right? So that means if you project it out into the world and you say, it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault, that's why, and instead of asking yourself, what am I doing to perpetuate this and how can I shift this? Or what's my lesson here? What's the growth opportunity? What can I add into this to create something different? So you don't really take things away. We're in an all-inclusive universe here. And you add things in which create a shift, right? So when we're looking at the time looping that many people are caught up in, it may feel like you're never going to get out of it, but we're on a nexus point. And a nexus point is looked at kind of like a spiral of your personal journey, right? So either your spiral is going upward, or it may just be kind of looping in circles, or it may be going downward, which means your life is getting worse and worse and worse. If it's getting worse, there is something that you need to shift, and immediately, in order to start going back upward, right? Our emotional guidance system helps us understand when we're going the wrong direction for our greatest good. Now, I don't think there's a right or wrong direction that you can go in your personal choices or life. It's just back to what I said earlier. Does it make you happy? Is it working out for you? And if it's not, what can you add in that would make it different? Or what can you release as a belief or a limitation, which would be adding in a possibility and expansion, so that you can create something new. When we're on a nexus point, we feel like we are stuck in these time loops, but really what we're doing is we're clearing everything along that nexus point throughout our entire spiritual history, all the different lifetimes. And also it can possibly be our ancestors that we're clearing for, but I really suspect that we are our ancestors because we've been reincarnating repeatedly for a very long time. When you're facing these different time loops or looping patterns or negative patterns, things will start to intensify for you, right? And this is where going within and accessing your inner source to get the information you need rather than externalizing it or outsourcing your spiritual needs or your spirituality, then you're able to make the necessary changes in order to get off of that timeline or shift to a higher timeline. When we shift to a higher timeline, things start to feel harder and harder, and we go into breakdown mode. Now, this triggers up fear and anxiety, and it makes us want to run because humans like to avoid pain. It's just a fact, right? None of us want to feel bad, myself included. I've run from my problems a lot in my life, and like a rubber band attached behind me, as the further I run, the harder they hit me when I stop, as they snap back at me, right? So this is where humanity currently is. When we blame things outside of us, we feel like a victim and we feel powerless. Now, are we being victimized? It looks like it to me. In this world, in this reality right now, it looks like it. But really, what we're experiencing right now in the external is a direct reflection of the collective internal experience. So when I say collective, that means everybody together. So there's chaos all over the place, and a lot of it is being programmed. And humans are so much like sponges that we will just absorb what we observe and then recreate that and imprint that into our timeline by thinking about it, feeling about it, and focusing on it. So our imagination will create things for us based on what we feel about intensely. So if you're watching things that make you feel negative in an intense way and you're not adding something into it, then you could be stuck in a loop of repeating and recreating that. That's what I call regurgitation creation. And a lot of people are now making a pivot off of that and saying, okay, wait, what's going on? I'm the constant in this. How can I shift this? When you start to do that, this is when things start to get really intense. And it feels like you're climbing uphill both ways in the snow barefoot. But that is the point where you get to that peak and you summit that peak, and then you start to move into the breakthrough mode. So some of the symptoms of a timeline jump include the need to shift everything in your life. Okay, when you feel the need to let go of connections or get a new job or move houses or move locations in the world, when you feel like you've outgrown your friends or your partner or your career, this is when you're in a timeline jump. But jumping off of that timeline sometimes means letting go of a lot of those things, which can trigger up a lot of fear and abandonment, rejection, and things like that. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to help move through these timeline jumps, both individually and collectively, if you put your focus in a direction that is beneficial for you. So if you'd like to finish this video up with me in the extended version, I invite you to join the membership on my website. And if this is where we part ways today, thank you so much for being here with me. And I look forward to seeing you again. Be well.